new ideas and new technology. Goes back again to making us in Bath as a hub for how those technologies can be developed. Darren's right, there are other things out there that can be developed. We need to improve how those R&D work, bring them to market quicker. Again, that's something we can help with the business side. So I think the answer to most of the questions I've had to date, and it's probably going to be with many of the answers I give you tonight, it's going to be by a combination of solutions. And if we work in joined up ways with our council leaders, with the other partners, we can find combinations to try and solve the problems. Thank you.
Leslie?
Can you just repeat the question for me, so I was not really understood?
Could you repeat the question?
Part of the problem in Bath is we have old listed buildings and planning regulations and planning laws don't allow us to insulate them effectively because of changing the frontage and the double glazing, etc. How would you change that? How would you help change that?
Well, Metro now will have responsibility for planning. And I think at the end of the day, nobody wants to come in and transform Bath in any kind of way that's going to be detrimental to it, especially not to the environment as well as to the aesthetics of the buildings. So I don't have the in-depth knowledge at the moment, but I'll certainly have a look at that and come back to you.
Thank you, that was honest. Stephen?
Well, I certainly wouldn't advocate doing anything that would cause detriment to either a conservation area or to listed, listed. Well, the rest of us do it without it. Is it better with or without?
Without.
With some people might be.
That's a Liberal Democrat answer.
Right, I'll start again. I certainly wouldn't. That's a problem. I wouldn't advocate anything that would cause detriment either to a conservation area or listed buildings. I think you've got the preamble. But I think technology is in time going to solve this anyway. When I was a minister, I worked with the Building Research Establishment, which was what Lloyd George set up. When he talked about homes fit for heroes, he set up the Building Research Establishment, which is now based outside Watford, and is the world's leading sort of housing research company about how you innovate in order to make homes more sustainable, how you build in a different way. It's a really fascinating place to go. So, as a regional mayor, what you can do is not alter the planning law and not alter listed building consent notices and so on, but you can bring innovation into the area. I think we're very close. I was into what Darren had to say, because when I was at the BRE about 3 years ago, they were looking at how you could actually do away with PV panels. They are pretty unsightly things that have sprung up on the roofs of lots of buildings in Clifton, Cosmo, Redlands, which are all conservation areas and listed buildings in Bristol, and actually get the electricity generated straight from your window pane. We're not far away from being able to get that. And I think either the BRE in Britain or the Chinese, who are doing lots of innovation in this area, will crack that pretty soon. So looking for innovation, whether it's in Britain or whether it's abroad, is I think something this Metro Mayor can do, but also work in concert with the other five and the Mayor of London, who's in place already. And I think we will be able to get around this issue, preserve what's best about our past, but live more sustainably in the future.
Okay, I'm going to have to try and sort this out. The next question from Lynn Patterson, and then there's I can't see. I think it's Bryn afterwards. So Lynn, then Bryn.
Thank you. In September, and this is for all of you, in September, Baines cut the subsidy to a bus serving Northeast Bath based on a flawed survey, causing severe hardship and adversely affecting the local shops. In a very hilly area with a higher than average number of elderly residents. Do you support the 2,000 500 people in Northeast Bath who signed a petition to restore the 6-7 bus route, which was cut? And will you work to reconnect the two halves of their community and their link to the London Road using your powers over transport?
So that's a question that's been rumbling on in Bath for some time. A very quick answer, I think, could probably be got from the candidates. Darren, do you want to start?
Do you want to be really quick and just say yes? I will just say one quick thing in that I met with the managing director of First Bus recently to put this point and a number of other points. What was really interesting that came out of the conversation was that they are in a position to put more buses back into the system, but are actually struggling with numbers of drivers. That's one thing. The second thing is that they have investment waiting if we can help get congestion down. Because the inability of this system to get going, whereby more passengers on more buses, is self-generating, right? Oh, by the way, the fares can come down as well. So we have a job to do to tackle congestion, to allow First Bus to then, if it is First Bus in the future, to then put more buses into more places. If not, I think we need to bring in community transport schemes, social enterprise, to fill the gaps.
Thank you. I support us using buses more, so let's make sure we're all clear on that. I've had a very similar example in the ward where I live. I fought with First Bus over a particular bus route. They still took it away. We are not, as a council, where we are in a position to actually provide subsidies for that bus route. So what we're doing is we're working with other bus providers to provide a solution. And that's something that we can do and champion. But also, as we've said earlier, in terms of the bus services bill, when it comes to franchising, we can look at those routes and we can look at the importance of them in lots of different ways. So that's the way in which Metro Mayor can help you. We're not in a position to providing individual bus subsidies, but we can look at it as part of overall bus movements, how we look at new franchising for you. And yes, I'm keen to get everybody using the bus as much as we can.
Thank you, Tim. Next, followed by Steve.
I just want to say a word quickly about use of the microphone. One thing we do have outside of Bristol, outside of London, is one of the biggest deaf populations in the country. And for a lot of people, as you get older, your hearing levels go down. And it's really important that people do use the mic, because people may need that if they've got a hearing aid, and also might not have a hearing aid but might need it. So please use the mic. We're all experienced enough to be able to use the mic without problems, I should think. So, on to the bus service. Hi. So, buses. I've already commented on the issue of having a mixed bus service. So, if you had a cooperative bus service along with other services, you could then pay for bus services not as economical as others, by the ones that are really economical. What we've seen with the deregulation of the bus service, which has been going on for years, is that the most lucrative bus services run, and the ones that are not lucrative don't run. In the meantime, what happens to all the profit? It doesn't go back into services. I'm not sure how much gets sucked out into tax havens, but I'm also opposed to those. So for me, the Lark Hall one is a real issue. I use the services there, I use the hairdressers up there, and there's so few people around when I go up there on a Saturday morning now. And there used to be a really thriving Saturday morning community, so it's destroying the community. It's not just about people not being able to get to the local shops, it's also hitting those local shops and their business as well. So do I support it? Yes, I do support the restoring of it.
Well, I'm not going to give you the short answer, yes, because I think that would be irresponsible without looking into all the issues, and I don't know all the issues about that particular route or why the council took the decision that it did. But looking forward, what the combined authority and the Metro Mayor will be together is the bus franchising authority going forward. And probably it's not going to be First that provides the solution. And part of the problem here is that First have had it their own way for far too long. And we want other providers to come in, and that's going to be an opportunity of bus franchising going forward. Maybe some of the other big providers, could be an opportunity for small, locally owned businesses to join this market. And I'm particularly interested in social enterprise run bus services as well, getting an entry point into both Bath and Bristol, so that they reinvest whatever surplus they do make from operating the route back into keeping the fares low, a bit like what I said earlier about housing. So I think that's the way forward. I think in 4 years' time, if this position has worked successfully, we'll see a proliferation of lots of different bus operators, but not operating in sort of meaningless competition. People don't want that on particular routes, but working in a planned way, which is the opportunity that we get from bus franchising. So I hope I'll be able to restore your bus service, but it probably won't be with the operator that you've lost. It'll be a new one.
Questions then?
So just John.
Oh, so we've done this again. John?
I don't mind, but I'll have a go. It sounded like an attack on Baines, and I must say, uncharacteristically, I find myself more and more drawn to sympathy with the problems that local authorities have. I always have. Whatever the difficulty is, there are two things to this, aren't there? The responsible authorities have to think about providing services for people that need them. And those services have to be paid for. One of the things that baffles me, so I'm not giving you an answer, that baffles me, is if you go to France, you can go long distances for €1.50 on any buses. You know, we're under the same rules at the moment as they are, and yet we can't subsidise the buses. And I know we've got to find the money, but I think there are some tricks to pull. Don't hold your breath about the bus bill. It's got a few days left to get through Parliament. If it doesn't get through before the close down, God knows when it will. So control over buses, which is a crucial part of the levers in this job, might be disappearing into the future. But I'm not crawling about this. I do have a deep empathy with the challenge on this and on social services in particular. All these things have got to be paid for. We've got to work out ways of making it fair and responding to people who are really in need. And because when you get old, you really are in need, I find it.
Bryn, followed by Fiona.
Thank you. The current MP and parliamentary candidate for Bath has made the link road between the A46 and the A36 a centrepiece of his transport strategy and his platform. He seems to be supported in this by Bath and North East Somerset Council. The link road, besides being environmentally destructive and enormously costly and taking a long while to produce, would, depending on the estimates, reduce traffic by between 10 and 20% at most on the northeast corridor. Would the panel support the MP and Bath and North East Somerset Council in this proposal, or would they oppose it?
Tim, if you could lead on that first, please. So that's a question on the link road.
Thank you. But sorry, yes. The link road, yes, it's a question I get asked a lot about. I grew up in Somerset. I used to have to commute through Bath to get to the motorway. I have lived on the south coast as well and tried to commute up through here. I actually see what happens on a regular basis when I'm in Bath, along areas like the London Road and through other areas. So yes, we do need to be providing new roads for the benefit of everybody in Bath. The A36, A46 link, I think, is one of those solutions. It needs to be part of a much bigger package of measures. It is not there on its own. I think we can go further with that in terms of how we then link that up to other motorway junctions around the city. I'm, for instance, been very heavily involved in the junction 18A on the M4, so we need to have other solutions. It's not just one, that needs to be one of a number. People have spoken to me already about their ideas about designs of how that road can work. It's not a decision that the Mayor will make, but I do support us having improved roads around the city to take away the challenges that face everybody who lives here in terms of congestion, in terms of air quality, and in terms of helping business and everybody of us here.
Leslie, followed by Stephen.
Thank you. We're back to what do we do with transport, aren't we? I mean, we can either put it up in the air, we can put it underground, or we could put it right across a nice piece of countryside. And this is where we normally get the biggest problems if we go for the latter option. For me, what I want to see with transport is we're consulting and we're having meaningful consultation on what we do as Metro Mayor. At the end of the day, it will be down to the three authorities, with possibly North Somerset involved as well, depending on what the particular issue is, as to how we go forward. And it won't be up to the Metro Mayor. The Metro Mayor will not have the power to say, we will do this. That is just not there. Nevertheless, when we get a Labour government on the 9th of June, which is my daughter's birthday, then I should be on the phone to Jeremy Corbyn saying the Metro Mayor should have more powers. So I'm not going to give you a direct answer on this because I can't. I don't think there is a really definitive answer to it. I don't want to see us build across the countryside, and I don't see why we can't, where it's appropriate, put things under the ground. Why don't we have a metro system like London? It's a fantastic opportunity to do that between Bristol and the airport. We could get people to work, as I talked about before. And yes, it would cost money, but sometimes you have to pay for something to get some really big differences out there without them affecting everyone's lives in a way that's going to be detrimental because we're chucking all this carbon into the atmosphere.
Thank you. Followed by John.
In my manifesto, I've got a section on roads in the transport section, and I put in place sort of key principle tests that I really support the devolved transport budget being spent on new road schemes, and I will include Park and Ride in that as well. If you can prove that there is a net environmental benefit as a result of making a highways intervention as opposed to a public transport intervention. And I know there is a chronic problem in East Bath that we have to tackle. Air quality, particularly along the London Road, is dreadful. So we have to do something to reduce the traffic flow that's coming into the city and going back out again on that A46, A36 route. I don't think Bath Park and Ride should be part of that answer. I am definitely opposed to that taking place, and so that's an area where Tim Moore and I will disagree, if necessary, on May the 8th, and we'll have to find another way forward. I'm sceptical about A36, A46 link, but would want to see a proper study done to see if we can find a route that would not despoil the countryside, would not, for instance, adversely affect villages such as Freshwood further along the route. But I am highly sceptical about it. Along that issue, it's something that's been talked about, I know, for a long time. It should have been done arguably when the Bath Eastern bypass was constructed back in the early 1990s. But now I'm sceptical about whether it might be the right solution. This is an example of where the Metro Mayor will need to work with other neighbours. We fret about whether North Somerset is in this arrangement. It probably doesn't matter so much to people in Bath. What does matter is having a good relationship with whoever is running Wiltshire after their county council elections next Thursday. So I would want to work with Wiltshire to have the new railway station at Caution and Box as well, and to see what we can do to divert traffic off the A46 further east onto the A350, because that's where most of it should be going if it's taking a direct north route south. And one way we could deter them is by having power from central government to make a clean air zone actually work. You've got to have the fiscal intervention, which will be camera spotting the number plates of dirty polluting vehicles and charging them to come into Bath or Bristol, and that will deter them onto a more sustainable route.
Finishing up with Darren.
I'm instinctively wary of road building. There is a sort of chaotic law that seems to have happened. That is, for every mile of road you build, you just add traffic. But I don't know the answer. I mean, it's a problem for government officials who've got to make decisions. I want to see more proof. I worry about this weird, almost factual law. So I don't know the answer, but I'd be very wary of anything apart from anything else. The grief it gives all sorts of people is disproportionate. In my scorned book, we predict I do take it. I do. In my scorned book, we predict by 2050, and I believe this, there will be a dramatic reduction by then of individual vehicles. I'm sure of that for all sorts of reasons. The changes over the last 30 years, we should look forward to the future of what changes we can make. So I'd be very much more concerned about moving as fast forward as we can to implementing things that might be revolutionary in getting that reduction of individual vehicles off the road much more quickly. It may be right to build this road, I don't know. I'd want to have more information, but as I said, I'm instinctively wary of long tranches of tarmac.
We're running out of time, so I'm probably going to...
Excuse me.
Oh, I've done this again! Do you think old age is an excuse?
Yes. Thank you, I'll be brief. I'm right now experiencing a bypass that's been put into South Bristol. And there was exactly the same conversations about should we build across a bit of green space in order to alleviate the traffic. Well, my experience of it is that it has alleviated the traffic at one bit of the road, slightly further north, and now we've got 2 traffic jams at the other end of the bypass. So my instinct, of course, you might expect, is to say no, more roads equals more cars and just equals more problems. Now, if you want to take a leap into the future, and it probably won't be underground, but right now in America they are experimenting with Hyperloop transport, which are high-speed, it's slightly scary, high-speed transport systems where you sit in pods in tubes. And it's obviously a bit better than in America because you've got to go long distances. They're trying to replace short hop flights. It's amazing technology. Now, we have to get away from our slavish belief that, and I agree with John on this, that the combustion engine is the way that we're going to be getting around. We're on the verge of a transport revolution, and our strategy, our 30 and 40-year strategy for transport needs to be going with it, not against that next step. And then we get into clean air zones and renewable energy and blah, 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 blah. But the first step is to get away from this slavish belief in the combustion engine and in particular in cars. Thank you.
This is really going to be the last question. Fiona here. Hello. Before she asks her question, we'll finish at the end. Thank you very much for coming. Transition Bath has a newsletter. transitionbath.org, it says it there, look. We're sorry about the woodworm in the microphones. It's something to do with an old listed building, I'm sure. So this will be our last question. Please don't hesitate to email I need to say contestants, the prospective mayors. I'm sure they'll answer. And thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you at the general event.
Sorry, can you hear me at the back? I have a question about air quality and congestion, in particular with regards to the school run. I speak as a parent and resident of East Bath who walked along Luton London Road. I would like to know what the candidates would do to alleviate the school run issue in Bath, probably Bristol and other areas as well. I recall Leslie mentioning free bus passes because the cost of a return bus ticket for a child is £600 a year in Bath.
And your question?
And my question is, what practical measures would you take to address the school run with regard to air quality and congestion and making it affordable for parents to use public transport?
So there's a school run, and we all know in Bath, when schools go on holiday, It's just magic. So, what specifics would you do? This is the last question. And if we could lead off with Leslie, followed by Stephen.
Well, one of the things I like to see is flexible working. A flexible working project is not about sitting at home with the children at your feet. It's about sometimes working at home, sometimes going into an office, and that means that we can take some of the transport off the road. We already talked about getting children to school, green transport, all the rest of it, getting the cost down. But the thing is, if we started to look at school times starting at different times, then it might be easier for people to get not just to and from work, but to and from school as well. I'm sorry, I get really tired. It's been a long day for me. I also still work in the NHS, so somebody's got to keep it going, apparently. I think I'll finish there, but just say thank you all for your questions.
Stephen, followed by John.
Well, I don't think there's any magic bullet, and while flexible working I think is certainly good for the parents, I'm not sure you could necessarily flex the school day, because obviously, unless you've got an only child, parents have children of different ages who might be in different schools, so I'm not sure that's while it sounds good, I'm not sure it would work as a practical solution. I think some of this is down to enforcement and compliance. So I've worked with the Police and Crime Commissioner, Sue Mary Stevens, to make sure there are more patrols, for instance, near schools. And there's lots of problems of parents dropping off children in inappropriate places, making it unsafe. And that's why I think other parents then decide, well, I'm going to drive my child because I don't think it's safe for them to walk. So I think having better compliance about what all schools certainly advocate is not driving close to the school or parking or dropping off close to the school, I think might help. But ultimately, I think we also want to make sure that all children know how to cycle safely and to get that as a programme into every primary school so that children have the confidence to ride their bikes or to know the safe walking route to school. But I don't think there's any magic bullet, and I certainly wouldn't take away the choice of parents to send their children to the school that they think best. When I was a child, I walked to my nearest school, and that was the norm in the late 70s and the 1980s. It's changed now, and parents expect to have a reasonable choice of educational provision, so I wouldn't be Stalinist and take that away. But we do have to educate people about safe walking and cycling routes to school, and I think that might help.
What about buses then?
Well, sorry, I was asked what about buses, and I think certainly we'd look at what you can do about the free travel pass for children, which ends outside London at 5, I believe. Tell me if I'm wrong, but in London goes much higher, and that's not equitable in the country, and that might be an area where we can put pressure on the government to get the extra money that will be needed. It would be misleading to say that out of the devolved transport budget we're going to get, that we can have lots of subsidised travel of the buses or to have free travel. That any politician who says that is misleading you. But I would be prepared to ask central government for the extra money so that children in Bath and Bristol get the same advantage as children in London.
Followed by Darren.
Well, I sort of agree with most of what everybody said. Just a small point, which I think we failed on, which I've seen work elsewhere. Walking buses really need a bit of development, a bit more control, but they're an opportunity for dealing with some of the problem. We don't have to deal with all of the problem in the same way. So walking buses. I also have a sneaking suspicion on an experiment that was done in Windsor 40 years ago that we could just control the timing of big vehicles coming through around school time. I think we could do that. It would take some thinking.
And finally, Tim.
Thanks. Yes, again, I agree with lots that's been said. So I will add a few different things, if I may. There's actually a group in Bristol that won an award recently to develop an app around schools' walking routes. And that development's coming through. It's really innovative use of technology, and it looks really exciting. So maybe we can roll that out regionally. I also love the fact that when you go to other places in Europe, there are far more parents who've got these amazing cargo bikes where they can take multiple kids around, and you see them doing it. But that's largely because they have provided safe, proper cycling routes to and from schools and local shops and whatever. And I think there is a real challenge that we ought to understand that it would be better for car drivers that need to drive around if we did take a lot of those people out of their cars and enable them to get to and from school by bike or by walking. It's a win-win, but we seem to be in this battle between the walking and cycling lobby and the car drivers, and it shouldn't be that way. The other bit around subsidies is I wonder whether, I lived in Strasbourg for 3 months just before Christmas, and it was €1.70 for everyone for 1 hour of transport, for everyone. And there just seemed to be a kind of an acceptance that was a really fair way of doing it. It needed subsidy, of course, it needed some subsidy, but because it was working so well, it sorted out the system, and business was invested in it because it wasn't causing congestion problems. So I think there is an opportunity to involve business in investing in our transport infrastructure because it will be good for them as well. It's a big issue, it's not going to change quickly, but I think it's about changing the culture by which we understand the importance of this.
Thank you. I think everyone said there isn't one easy answer. I don't have it either. It does need, as I said right from the start, to be a combination of things. Clean air zones are something I'm really committed to providing and working with the council on in Bath. That's something I would certainly put funding towards. We've then got to look, as you say, about how we address the way people actually move, the way their thinking is. I touched earlier on what I've done in South Gloucestershire in terms of cycling. Even in the community where I live with an old Victorian school, we've made differences there in the ability for people to be able to walk their children there. We have a nightmare there in terms of cars, and I'm going to say Chelsea tractors, and everyone knows what I mean. Yeah, people bringing 4x4s to the school. We've been trying to make it actually easier for people to walk there with their children, and that's in a rural environment. Cycling, yes, we've got to make it safer, we've got to make it cleaner for people to do. We've got to get back to that carrot and stick that we talked about earlier. So it's got to be, again, a combination of measures. I've spoken already about developing homes where people want them close to where infrastructure is. So it's looking at all of that combination of things for you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
I realise that the hustings is not a good mechanism for hearing in depth what the candidate says. So there's an email, info@transitionbath.org. If you can think of a better way of doing it, could you email me? Because I'd love to speak to all these people in depth and hear their in-depth points, but we don't have the time. If they have a manifesto, I suggest you read it. Thank you very much indeed for coming, and thank you very much, candidates, for what's been a very long day. Have a safe journey home. Try not to breathe too much on the London road, and we'll see you again soon.